Welcome to the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show.
Cup of Joe Wrestling Show?
With Joey Harris. A podcast for the wrestling fan on the go. So take your favorite beverage of choice and join Joey as he takes a look at some of the biggest shows on the WWE Network.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show. I'm your host, Joey Harris, and we are broadcasting from makeshift studios in the shadow of South Central Virginia. You can follow the show on Twitter at Cup of Joe Pod. You can email the show at cupofjoewrestlingshow@gmail.com. If you would like to support the show, you can at paypal.me/cupofjoepod. Folks, back again, and someone tried to impersonate me today on Facebook. I got a friend request from myself, and then had other family members, friends, acquaintances all messaging me saying about this, and I thanked them and reported it to Facebook. Several other people reported it as well, and I keep getting emails that they're like, this hasn't violated our standards. I'm like, they are literally trying to be me. You can see me. I have been on this app for 16 years now, and this other person, first of all, sent a friend of mine a Facebook request before they changed their name to my name, and she had screenshots of it and sent it to me, and they're like, no, that doesn't violate our standards. I'm like, all right, whatever. But it was just a strange way to start your day. So changed my passwords, set up some two-step verification and authentication measures, and just a fun way to get your day started, huh? Today we look at Fall Brawl 93 from WCW. You know, a lot of people talk about 1993 not being one of the best years for pro wrestling, and to me, I have an awful lot of nostalgia for that time. I was coming into my own. I was 15. I was into wrestling, as much wrestling as you could give me. But I didn't have cable, so my amount of wrestling was very small. At this time, what I could watch was Superstars at our local NBC affiliate at the time had started Superstars in a block back to back with, first of all, was WCW Worldwide and then Superstars. But on Saturday nights, I had found that another station, either 6 or 7 o'clock at night, was, I believe, showing the syndicated version. They had a syndicated version for a while of WCW Main Event. And so I would watch that. And I was convinced at this time that even though I didn't have cable, I didn't have a satellite, that if the conditions were right, that I could do a version of what Jim Cornette did when he was younger. I didn't even know this about Cornette at the time. But if you don't know the story, Jim Cornette convinced his mother to let him put a bigger antenna up on his roof so that he could get wrestling from all over. I was convinced that if I could have a clear enough airspace, and when I was growing up, my childhood bedroom, I felt like was in the perfect position that I could pull in cable, or I could pull in like pay-per-view feeds. I know it sounds strange. I realize now that that's probably not how that works, but you couldn't convince me. And whatever, I was just wasting what time that I was just going to watch something on TV anyway, trying to do this. So that was a lot of what my Saturday nights consisted of. Trying to come up with some way to boost the antenna signal for my television so that I can get more TV channels. Didn't work that well. Worked better than I thought it would. I got more channels, or at least partially got channels, but I wasn't getting cable and I wasn't getting pay-per-view. Fall Brawl 93 War Games was shown on pay-per-view on September the 19th, 1993 from the Astro Arena in Houston, Texas. There were 6,000 in attendance. I'm going to give you a preemptive warning here, folks. Do not take a drink every time Jesse says Texican. We start off with our intro. Tony Schiavone welcomes us to Fall Brawl. He and Jesse Ventura are the announcers for the event. In a dark match, Eric Watts defeated Bobby Eaton. Eric Bischoff briefly welcomes us before throwing it to Michael Buffer. WCW World Television Championship match, Ricky Steamboat versus Lord Steven Regal with Sir William. Regal out first and he looks at the crowd with disdain. Steamboat comes out and does his fire-breathing gimmick. Buffer does the introductions. Steamboat's side is taped up from being attacked by Regal on WCW Saturday Night with the umbrella that Sir William carries. Steamboat attacks Regal as soon as the bell rings. Back and forth. Regal concentrating on the injured ribs. Steamboat throws Regal out onto the runway. Steamboat throws Regal back in and hits a top rope chop. They trade shots again. Regal hits Steamboat in the ribs. Steamboat with a thrust kick to Regal. Steamboat then attacks Regal in the corner. Steamboat with a hammerlock on the mat. Regal gets out and attacks the ribs again. Steamboat lures Regal in with an arm lock and gets a 2 count. Steamboat working on Regal's arm. He gets another 2 count. Steamboat trying to get the shoulders down. Steamboat with a body press for a 2 count and it hurts Steamboat's ribs. They battle for position. Steamboat with an armbar and Regal just lifts up with Steamboat on his arms in an impressive move. Steamboat holds on and gets Regal back down. Steamboat thrown outside. Regal backdrops Steamboat inside the ring. Regal working on Steamboat's ribs. He hits a modified cannonball and gets a crossface on Steamboat. He then goes back to working on the ribs. Steamboat slams Regal, but Regal gets his knees up on a splash attempt. Regal with an over-the-shoulder backbreaker. Regal with a modified surfboard. He finally lets go. Steamboat with chops. Regal with a front face lock and rips the tape off of Steamboat's ribs. He hits a butterfly suplex for a 2 count. Steamboat comes back with a catapult. Regal answers with a chin lock to Steamboat. He follows up with a slam. Steamboat reverses and hits a pile driver. Regal runs Steamboat into a turnbuckle. Steamboat with a roll up for a 2 count. An inside cradle gets another 2 count. Steamboat with a suplex for yet another 2 count. Steamboat goes up top. He hits a body press, but Regal rolls Steamboat off. Steamboat with a 2 count. Steamboat with a body block for another 2 count. Regal goes and throws Steamboat out. Steamboat goes to skin the cat, and Sir William hits Steamboat with the umbrella. Regal gets the pin with a bridging suplex to become the new television champion. Eric Bischoff interviews the newly arrived Nasty Boys. They say they have a big surprise and are going to finish off the Horsemen. Big Sky versus Charlie Norris. The bell rings and they circle each other. They lock up and push off. Sky with a wrist lock. Norris reverses. Into an armbar. Sky tries to get up, but Norris holds on. Sky up and drives Norris into a corner. Norris reverses a corner whip, but Sky gets his boot up on the charge. Sky with a choke slam. He drops a leg on Norris. He slams Norris down, but misses a knee drop from the second rope when Norris moves. Norris with a chop. Back and forth. Norris hits the big foot to get the pin. Scott Dunlop interviews Davey Boy Smith about War Games. Smith breaks down what's going to happen. The Equalizer and Paul Orndorff versus Too Cold Scorpio and Marcus Alexander Bagwell. The crowd chants Paula. Equalizer and Bagwell start. They circle each other. Equalizer with some forearms. Bagwell tries to knock Equalizer down, but keeps getting knocked down himself. Scorpio in and they double drop kick Equalizer out. Scorpio in against Equalizer. Back and forth. Orndorff tagged in. He gets Scorpio down and attacks him relentlessly. He beats Scorpio down in the corner. Scorpio with some forearms and a reverse crossbody off the top rope. Orndorff rolls through to get a count. Scorpio comes back with an armbar. Bagwell tagged in. Double hip toss and elbow, and Bagwell gets a 2 count. Orndorff comes back with a knee lift. Bagwell with a float over suplex. Bagwell with a shoulder block, but Equalizer pulls down the rope and Bagwell tumbles to the outside while the referee was trying to get Scorpio out of the ring. Equalizer slams Bagwell on the floor. He then runs Equalizer into the apron. Back in, they exchange blows. Equalizer tagged in. He goads Scorpio and they double team Bagwell. The crowd chants Paula at Orndorff. Equalizer with the rear chin lock. Bagwell comes back with elbows and a crucifix. He gets a 2 count. Equalizer comes back with a clothesline, but Scorpio breaks up the pin. Orndorff tagged in. Orndorff with a bear hug. Bagwell fighting out. He hits the belly to back suplex. Equalizer and Scorpio both tagged in. Scorpio cleaning house. Scorpio with a flying body press, but Orndorff breaks up the count. All 4 men in. Heels double team Bagwell. Orndorff accidentally hits Equalizer with a high knee, and Scorpio hits the 450 splash to get the pin. They continue to brawl after the match. Eric Bischoff interviews Lord Steven Regal and Sir William. Regal says he will defend the TV title with honor and pride. Shanghai Pierce with Tex Slazenger versus Ice Train. The bell rings and they lock up. Pierce with a side headlock. Train powers out and throws Pierce down. Another lock up. Train with a side headlock. Pierce pushes off. Train comes back with a shoulder block. They pose at each other. Pierce with a series of forearms. Pierce with an Irish whip. Slazenger grabs Train's boot, and Pierce clotheslines Train from behind. Pierce with a snapmare and drops the knee on Train. Train blocks and then reverses a suplex. Train with the backdrop. Slazenger gets up on the apron, and Pierce gets an Irish whip, and they go to clothesline Train with the bull rope, but he runs through it. Train with a power slam to get the pin. Train clears the ring of the heels after that. We get a Halloween Havoc ad. Tony and Jesse talk about the Tag Team Championship match. WCW World Tag Team Championship match. The Horsemen, Arn Anderson and Paul Roma, versus the Nasty Boys Brian Knobbs and Jerry Sags with their surprise new manager, Missy Hyatt. Fans greet the Horsemen warmly when they come out. Michael Buffer does the introductions. Roma and Knobbs start. Knobbs yelling what he is going to do to Roma. Knobbs tries to rush Roma from behind, but Roma knocks Knobbs down. The Nasty Boys regroup with Hyatt. Knobbs runs Roma into the turnbuckle. Knobbs reverses an Irish whip and gets a shoulder block. He then gets another one. All four men in and the Horsemen with the advantage, so the Nasty Boys roll back outside to regroup. Sags tagged in and says he wants Anderson. Anderson tags in. They lock up and drive to a corner. Sags beating Anderson down in the corner. Anderson comes back with a corner whip and a back elbow. Anderson slams Sags' knee into the ring post. Anderson stomps on the legs of Sags. Roma tagged in. He continues the assault on the leg. He picks up a leg lock. Fans scream, "Take it off," to Missy. Sags pulling Roma's hair to break the hold. Knobbs tagged in. Roma with a drop toe hold to Knobbs, and Anderson tagged in. They do the wishbone to Knobbs. Anderson drives Knobbs' knee down on the mat. Anderson with a leg grapevine to Knobbs. He keeps up the assault on Knobbs. Roma tagged in and runs Knobbs into a turnbuckle. He hits a snapmare on Knobbs. Roma with a modified toe hold. Roma keeps up the assault on Knobbs' leg. Knobbs with a corner whip, but Roma gets his boot up on the charge. Knobbs pushes off another leg lock attempt, and Roma runs into Sags to knock him off the apron. Knobbs with a front face lock, and Sags tagged in. Sags with a gut wrench suplex for a 2 count. Knobbs tagged in and drops an elbow in a reverse chin lock. Sags tagged in and picks the chin lock up. Roma powers out, but Knobbs tags in. He drops an elbow. Knobbs with a rear chin lock. Roma powers out. Sags and Anderson tagged in. Anderson cleans house. Anderson puts a sleeper on Sags. Knobbs climbs up top while Missy distracts the referee. Anderson goes to splash Sags, who gets his knees up. Knobbs clotheslines Anderson to the outside. Sags throws Anderson back in, only to throw him out on the other side, and Knobbs slams Anderson on the floor. Sags grabs Jesse's chair and hits Anderson with it. Knobbs gets Anderson in the ring and gets a 2 count. The Nasty Boys double team Anderson. Anderson trying to fight back. Knobbs in and kicking Anderson. Sags tagged in. He gets an abdominal stretch on. Knobbs tagged in and he picks the stretch up. Anderson reverses the move, but Sags comes in and hits Anderson with the forearm. Knobbs gets a 2 count. Sags in and drops an elbow. Sags with a front face lock. Anderson tags Roma in, but referee Randy Anderson didn't see it. Sags gets a 2 count. Knobbs tagged in. Knobbs with the corner whip and a bear hug. Anderson bites Knobbs to break the hold. Sags tagged in and cuts Anderson off from tagging. Sags with a suplex for a 2 count. Sags with a bear hug. Anderson trying to get out, but Knobbs tagged in. Double Irish whip and back elbow. Knobbs with an Irish whip, and Anderson comes back with an elbow. Sags in and cuts off another Anderson tag attempt. Knobbs in and Nasty Boys go for a double team move, but Anderson slams both down. Roma tagged in. Roma cleans house. Roma goes up top and hits Knobbs with a missile dropkick. Sags goes to jump Roma, who comes back with a corner-mounted punches to Sags. Knobbs puts Roma on his shoulders. Sags goes up top. Anderson pushes Sags off. Sags bumps into Knobs, and Roma rolls Knobs up for a 2 count. Anderson hits a spine buster to Knobs. Roma hits the swan dive on Knobs, but Randy Anderson is trying to get Arn out. Sags drops an elbow from the top rope, and Knobs covers to get the pin, and we have new tag team champions. Hyatt grabs the titles and gives them to the Nasty Boys. Jesse interviews Missy and the Nasty Boys. Missy says she told Ric Flair she was going to get him and the Horsemen are finished. They say this is the reign of the Nasty Boys. A feature on Cactus Jack and what has happened between him and Vader. Bounty match. Cactus Jack versus Yoshi Kwan with Harley Race. They make a lot out of the little bag of Cactus Jacks that Harley Race has taken. Jack gets to the ring and attacks Race and Kwan. The bell rings. Jack takes Kwan down. Jack with a leapfrog by the guillotine. Jack then clotheslines Kwan to the outside. Jack goes after Race and Kwan catches Jack from behind with a high knee. They fight to the ramp. Kwan hits an enziguri. They battle back to the ring. Kwan with a spinning heel kick. Cactus Jack fighting back. Jack with a reverse atomic drop. Race trips Jack. A second attempt fails as Race grabs Jack, who ducks, and Kwan hits Race. Jack with a double arm DDT to Kwan to get the pin. Cactus Jack then suplexes Race and gets the bag. Cactus Jack then challenges Vader to a match at Halloween Havoc. Tony and Jesse talk about what happened between Rick Rude and Ric Flair on a Flair for the Gold. World Heavyweight Championship match. Ric Flair with Fifi versus Rick Rude. This is that weird time between the severing of ties between the NWA and WCW and the International Heavyweight Championship debacle. It is what it is. Rude has Fifi on his tights. The bell rings. They lock up and drive to a corner. Another lock up and Rude with a side headlock. Flair powers out. Rude goes back to the side headlock. Flair reverses into a top wrist lock. Back and forth. Flair pushes off and Rude comes back with a shoulder block. Rude with a knee drop. He misses a top rope knee drop when Flair moves. Flair gets the figure 4 on, but Rude gets to the ropes. Rude clotheslines Flair and taunts Fifi. Flair hits a move off the top rope, so drink everything you have, folks. Flair with chops. He follows it up with a wrist lock, into a hammer lock, into a wrist lock again, and Flair chopping Rude. Rude with an armbar. Back to the wrist lock, into the hammer lock again. Flair gets Rude down and kicks him. Rude comes back with a corner whip, but misses the charge when Flair moves. Flair chops Rude down. Flair back to the wrist lock. Back and forth. Flair working relentlessly on the arm. He puts the arm bar on. Jesse calls Fifi a gold digger. Rude trying desperately to work out of the move. Flair gets a backslide for a 2 count. They spill out to the floor. Rude clotheslines Flair on the outside and drives Flair into the apron. Rude suplexes Flair back in and gets a 2 count. Rude with forearms to Flair. He gets a 2 count. Rude with a rear chin lock. Flair trying to get to his feet. Rude slams down on Flair's back and taunts Fifi. Rude cranking on the hold. Flair gets out and chops Rude. He hits a shoulder block. Rude drops Flair on the top rope. Rude with a fist drop. Flair sent up and over to the floor. He then guillotines Flair on the top rope. Rude keeps knocking Flair down. Rude puts a bear hug on. Flair trying to get out. Rude keeps the hold on and gets Flair down for some 2 counts. Flair reverses on top of Rude and attacks Rude. Flair rushes Rude, who guillotines Flair on the top rope. Rude hits a top rope forearm to Flair. He hits a second top rope forearm. He gets caught a 3rd time. Flair with a flurry of offense. Flair with a butterfly suplex for a 2 count. Flair with a corner whip, but Rude gets a knee up on the charge. Rude with a DDT. He gets a 2 count. Rude with some knee lifts. Flair blocks a Rude Awakening attempt by biting Rude. Flair then hits a Rude Awakening, but Rude gets his foot on the ropes. Rude gets a sleeper, but Flair gets out and attacks the leg. He hits a leg snap off the ropes, and Flair really had his working shoes on for this match. Flair setting Rude up for the figure 4. He goes for it, but Rude rolls Flair up for a 2 count. Flair throws Rude outside. He follows Rude out. He clotheslines Rude and chops Rude. Flair goes up top and hits a shot to Rude on the outside. Back in, Flair chops Rude in the corner. Flair sent up and over, goes to the opposite corner, but gets caught coming off by Rude. Rude goes up top. He hits a fist drop for a 2 count. Rude throws Flair outside. He then taunts Fifi, who slaps Rude. Rude brings Fifi in and yells at her in the corner. Flair attacks Rude from behind. Flair with an inverted atomic drop. Flair gets the figure 4 on, but the referee is tied up with Fifi. Rude gets something from his trunks and hits Flair with it to get the pin. We have a new champion. We get another Halloween Havoc ad. Tony and Jesse talk about War Games, and the War Games rules are announced. The cage is lowered. Main event, War Games. Harlem Heat, Kane and Cole, Sid Vicious and Vader with Colonel Robert Parker and Harley Race versus Sting, Davey Boy Smith, the Shockmaster, and Dustin Rhodes with Road Warrior Animal. Rhodes jumps into the ring to go first versus Vader. He attacks Vader. Vader comes back on Rhodes, who had come in injured. Rhodes gets Vader down. Rhodes attacks Vader with his boot. Vader gets a boot up on the charge. Vader beating Rhodes down in the corner. He is brutalizing the injured Rhodes. Vader bomb to Rhodes. Rhodes comes back and hits Vader with a DDT. Heels win the coin toss. Vader with a snapmare. Rhodes with a power slam. Kane enters the ring. They double team Rhodes and beat him with his own boot. They throw Rhodes into the cage. Sting comes in and gets attacked immediately. Sting comes back with a double clothesline. He runs Kane into the cage. He dumps Vader up into the cage. Sting beating Vader in the cage. Rhodes bleeding profusely. Vader ran into the cage. Sid Vicious in. He and Sting collide. Vicious with a chokeslam to Sting. Heels with the advantage. They attack both Rhodes and Sting. Smith comes in. He and Vicious go at it and Smith cleans house on the heels. Sting and Smith runs Vicious into the top of the cage. They start to pair off. Vicious ran into the cage. Cole comes in. He attacks Rhodes. Jesse making fun of the Shockmaster. They pair off again. Rhodes taking on Vicious. He puts Vicious in the figure 4. Shockmaster in and the match beyond begins. Shockmaster cleans house. He takes Vader down. He throws Cole into the cage. Shockmaster puts Cole in a bear hug. Cole gives up and Sting's team wins. Vader and Vicious tell Sting's team to come back as they leave the cage. Jesse and Tony recap the night and announce that Cactus Jack will take on Vader at Halloween Havoc before signing off from Houston. We then get our end credits. Final thoughts. This was an enjoyable show with the final 2 matches being very good. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at TheJoeyHairs. If you like the show, please leave a review on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, or your preferred podcast app. I would really appreciate it. Thank you for joining me this week. This is Joey saying so long from the heart of Virginia.
The Cup of Joe Wrestling Show is a production of Baby Kangaroo Media.